please give your attention, your open hearts, and listen to the way that the Lord is going to speak through Lauren. He does on a daily basis, and I think what she has to share today may be impactful for you as well. So, Lauren,
thanks,
please
Father.
come on.
Thank you. They leveled me up with the nice mic. So, hey, I'm not gonna make this really long because I'm certainly not the main event of the night. But we've kind of been talking about this idea and this notion and of Christ as King, right? Like, Viva Cristo Rey. Viva, right? Like, Christ, long live Christ the King. And if we're doing it right, like, he is the King. And so I was just thinking along these lines and just about what it actually means to have Christ as King and like what in a lot of ways that costs us. And I'm going to swing back around to this, but I was thinking about this idea the other day is this. Like, I think one of the greatest human fears to our core is like to be misunderstood. To be misunderstood and to feel like we're just like not known. And I think if we all kind of like think back through moments of our life when like someone really hurt us or we were in a situation where we were really hurt, it's like we didn't feel understood. We felt misunderstood. We felt like we weren't known. And I don't know about you guys, but I think for me, growing up, when I was in high school, I really wanted the good. I did, and I can say that with all honesty. Like, I think my parents in a lot of really cool ways raised all of us, me and my 3 siblings, like we wanted the good. And I felt like when I got to high school, I wanted the good, but I didn't want to be seen as someone like who is the goody two-shoes, or like you're so lame because you won't do this thing, or you think you're better than everyone else, or I don't know, all these different things. Like, I was so worried about that. And I would assume, since you're here on this retreat, unless, once again, your mom drugged you and dropped you off here, drug you, not drugged you, to clarify. I don't know, maybe she did. Talk to me about that later. Like I'm willing to go ahead and assume here that every single person in this room, like, there's a part of you that really, like, you do want the good. You really do. Like, you want the good. You want Christ to be King. You want to, like, seek after good things, but there's something that stands in our way. A lot of times, especially for me in high school, I'll be really honest, there were so many times in high school when, like, someone was ragging on someone else, like, huge, like, gossip session. I was like, this is really bad. Like, I don't want to say anything bad, but, like, all eyes turned to me to say the next thing, and, like, I got to be on it. Like, I'm not going to be the awkward person who's, like, too good for everyone else, or, like, when something came along that I easily could have said no to. Thunder? Sound? Scary. When something would come along that, like, I easily could say no to, I didn't want to be misunderstood. Like, I wanted the good thing, but I didn't want people to misunderstand that. And I feel like there's probably a lot of you in this room with the same kind of mentality of, like, I don't want it to be misunderstood because I want to be seen as, like, someone that people like. And so we all kind of have this deep-seated fear to be misunderstood. Like, no one in this room wants to be misunderstood. Yes? I genuinely believe that. I don't think there's one person sitting in this room like, it doesn't really bother me when people totally misunderstand me and misjudge me. Like, you're lying. That bothers us, to not be seen and to not be known. And so here's what the world offers us. The world steps in and the world offers us this idea that, like, hey, everyone will like you, everyone will understand you, everyone will know you if you're someone who can just, like, go with the flow. Everyone will understand you, everyone will like you, everyone will know you if you're just, like, everyone's favorite. And the world continues to feed us these lies, like, everyone will know you, everyone will understand you if you just, like, have a bunch of money and you're really popular. Like, you'll be known, you'll be understood, people will get that. The world will understand you, The world will love you. The world will respect you if you're someone who just like does whatever they want and you like stick with that. The world will know you. Everyone will love you. That's what the world says. And I love this quote. It's by St. John of God, and he says this. I'm going to read it so I don't butcher it. He says this goes on until the hour of our death, when everything the world and the devil have promised us is revealed as false. I'll read that again to you. This goes on, the world feeding us all these lies, the world saying like you'll never be misunderstood if you do these things, if you just like go along with the flow, if you do what everyone else is doing, if you just make a bunch of money, or you just like are someone who's really popular and get all the people to like them. And John of God says this goes on until the very hour of our death, when everything the world and the devil promised us is revealed as false. And I want to point this out because this is crazy. Like you and I, when we die, and we will, we're going to look God in the face. We're going to look God face to face. And what St. John of God is saying here is like, in that moment, when you and I look God face to face, we're going to realize it was all a lie. Everything that the world was feeding us was simply a lie. I want to tell you tonight about one of the biggest misunderstandings to ever happen in human history. It's about Christ the King. I've thought about this a lot, way before, like years and years before this was even the topic. So when they like tossed this topic my way, it's immediately where my mind went to. The biggest misunderstanding I think to ever happen in the world is that they crowned Jesus Christ with thorns. You want to talk about a misunderstanding? You want to talk about someone being misunderstood? Like God became man. God took on flesh. Jesus spends his whole life pouring himself out for people, healing people, being with the people who everyone else hated and ignored. The King of the world. And what did they do? They put a crown of thorns on his head. They put a crown of thorns on his head, and then they beat him. They slapped him across the face. They spit in his face. Christ, the King, was incredibly misunderstood. So much so that he was crowned with thorns. But I'll tell you this much, and here's why this matters for us, is this. Like Jesus was crowned with thorns, he was spit on, he was beat, he was all these different things, and what did he say? Not a word. Why? Because he had purpose. He had a purpose. Like it didn't matter if they understood it or not. Like it didn't matter if he was misunderstood in that moment. Like Jesus had a purpose. And here's the good news for you and I. We have a purpose too. Each and every single person in this room, like you have a purpose. And some of us like that plays out in different ways. But every person in this room, you have a purpose to spend this life knowing and loving God and your neighbor and then spending an eternity with him. That's your purpose, amen? Like you are created with a purpose. And I don't know what you're going to do with your life. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. Heck, I don't know. I know what's happened up until now. It's kind of confusing, but here we are. But like we all have a purpose to know and to love God and our neighbor and then to spend an eternity with him. And I'll tell you this much. I think this is really important. You might go your whole life without people understanding you fully. Like, you might be misunderstood. Heck, many of you maybe, like, you started to, like, make some good decisions to really, like, live in that purpose that you have, and your friends are like, nope. Or maybe some of you started to, like, man, I really want to like try harder. I want to try better. And maybe your parents were like, what are you doing? We don't do that. We're not those people. I say this like I go to say like there's probably many of you who have felt incredibly misunderstood. And then I think back to John 15. Love this line. He says this. Jesus says this, if the world hates you, realize that it hated me first. What a crazy line. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. I want to say this because we're going to have an opportunity tonight with adoration, which I'm going to tap into in a minute. But I really want to say this is like, when I was praying about this and all my years of ministry and working for the church and all the incredible positions that God's put me in to do it, what I've watched is this deep-seated fear that I certainly had, and if I'm being honest, still sometimes have, is that if I make Christ my king, if I start making decisions in my life that actually point to him as king, if I now realize that Christ is king and now I have to change things in my life, change my decisions, change my friends, change the way I do things, change and break habits that hold me back, I'm really worried that people are like not gonna understand that. I'm afraid that people are gonna look at me and be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? You're so lame now. You'd never want to do anything. Like we have this fear, like if I actually make Christ my king, I'm going to be misunderstood. And if being misunderstood is one of our deepest fears, we're going to try to avoid it. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense why we do it. But I think the invitation here tonight, and I was trying to think of like a really good story or a story from all the ministry that I've done throughout all my years, and just kind of came back to like taking a look at myself. And I'll say this, and what I want to kind of like hone in on here for you is this. I think probably what you see up here is someone who like can be silly and confident and goofy and all these different things. And I'll tell you when that started. I'll tell you when it started. You wouldn't see anything like this in high school because I was so worried about being misunderstood. And it wasn't until I got to college, I was surrounded by some really good people, and I made a decision like, no, man, I've been kind of holding back for a really long time. Like, I'm gonna make Christ the king. I didn't think of it like that, but I was like, I'm actually gonna put him first. I'm actually going to put him first. And if I'm honest with you, that didn't happen right away. I didn't just make this crazy decision and turn around and wake up the next morning and my life was totally different. But what I started to see is my decision started to change. And I'll tell you this much, and what I want to offer you tonight is like this, like Jesus set me free in that. In a really real and tangible way. Like, I don't care if you misunderstand me. That doesn't, I'm not just talking about you in general. Like I'm living the faith. I'm putting Christ first in everything I do. I'll be honest, I'm working my butt off to do it every single day. It's a choice. Every single moment of the day, it's a choice. I'm choosing it. I'm working hard to choose it, and it's worth it every time. And every single time when I lay my head on the pillow, man, I'm free. And I mean that. And I don't get it right all the time. And a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I really messed up on that. And I hear Jesus say we're okay, try again tomorrow. But I really do. I want to offer just something really, really simple for you guys tonight. He's like, Jesus wants you to be free. Jesus wants you to be free to be fully who he created you to be. And I know for a fact that there are plenty, if not maybe all of you sitting out here tonight, or a large majority, that like one of the only things holding you back is what other people are going to think about you. And I think that's a really real fear, to be completely honest. I don't think you're lame for that. I lived that for most of my life. Like the one thing holding you back from like choosing God at every moment, saying no to the things that you know you should say no to, is that people might misunderstand you, that people might be like, you're so dumb and lame now. I don't know what they're going to say. I remember some friends saying that to me, like, you're so lame for not doing that. I don't really think I'm lame at this point, right? Like, I do the most incredible things. Like John Paul II said, like, life with Christ is a beautiful adventure. Like, it's crazy. Like, I don't lack for anything fun as a Catholic. You feel? I promise you that. You can ask any of the adults back there who live out here. I don't lack for anything fun. Like, my life is free. My life is good. I don't feel bound. Father Peyton was talking about that today, like feeling like you have all these rules. Like, when you make Christ the King and you're chasing after him, like, all those other things fall away. And I don't have a ton of profound things to say because, again, I really, like, the main event is coming for tonight. But I did feel, like, just in prayer, man, this invitation to y'all, like, you're going to encounter Christ tonight. And maybe it's something that, like, you feel. Maybe, like, it feels like you're encountering God. Maybe it feels like you sit in this room for an hour. I don't know what it's going to feel like for you, but I do know for a fact that God is going to be present here in a really real and tangible way. And again, I said it last year, and I'll say it again for the people in the back and everyone in between. I'm with you. I think it's hard in adoration to look at a little host and be like, yep, definitely God, for sure. That's hard for me. My prayer in adoration is usually like this, like, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Like, I don't get how you are up there in the host. Like, I don't get it. And I think in my heart of hearts, every time I say that prayer, God just like, I got you. I got you. So the invitation is there for you tonight to start to inch toward making Christ your King. I want to be, again, really honest here and say, like, I'm not asking anyone in this room to just, like, God's going to do whatever he wants tonight, to be completely honest. But I think what's really cool is, like, for some of you who are sitting in these seats who have been to ACYC for 4 years. A lot of you cheered that you had been here for 4 years strong. And maybe every year you leave and you're like, man, yeah, I want to do this. I want to get this right. I want to like be someone different. And then you head back to your school, whether it's public or private, doesn't matter. And immediately that's squashed out. Like we're back to the grind. I got to kind of continue to do my own thing off to the side. And I'm not saying you need to be in people's faces. Please don't. But I am saying, like, when we encounter God and he wants to move and shake, like, let's have the courage to let him do that. Let's have the courage to, like, maybe if this is your 4th ACYC, to be like, God, like, how do you want me to make you king? And maybe if it's your first time in adoration, maybe some of you have never, ever been to adoration before, and you're looking at this host, and you're just like, God, okay, man, like, I'm here. This is what I got. What do you want? How can I make you king? And then, like, listen to what he tells you. But I think my big encouragement to y'all is like, what happens next? And if anything, like this talk really is like you can do it. Because I lived that life. Like, I was so afraid to be misunderstood that I held myself back for so many years. I honestly, like, I feel kind of devastated sometimes when I think about all the times where, like, I just wanted to do good and then I didn't because I was worried about other people, and, like, just how many years I felt like I let myself be held back. I let myself be bound. But you have an opportunity tonight. And something, I promise, something is going to stir in your soul tonight. God is going to move in your soul tonight. And I'd stake my entire life, I'd be willing to die for this truth. Like, I know for a fact, God wants each person in this room to be free. In the most fullest sense of the word. And if you're worried about people misunderstanding you, if you're worried about doing the good, the true, and the beautiful, and you're worried about all the things that other people around you might say, I'll remind you of this. Christ, your King, was crowned with thorns, incredibly misunderstood, but through a misunderstanding, brought the salvation of the world.